Well, we're going to go on, and we've been doing a series called Fruitful, and we're going to continue in that today. And just starting off, John 15:5, I'm going to read that. It's just Jesus' words. He said, "I'm the vine, you're the branches. He who abides in me, and I in him, bears much fruit." I like that. That's what I have really big in my notes, is he bears much fruit. Then it says, "For without me, you can do nothing." That's an attitude that it's becoming so real to me that I need Jesus, I need him every day. Anybody else kind of feel like that? Every day when you wake up, it's a new, how many, like the first month or so of that COVID experience that we had, you woke up every day and you thought, was this a dream? That's how I felt. I felt like, oh man, that really happened. Oh yeah, but but I need Jesus. And the things we talk about, we've been learning for years, we're just at a time now where we're having to live them. We're having to live them. We're having to walk out the very things that Kelly's talking about here. Our words matter. We're having to walk out the things that we've learned in church and in fellowship with each other. God's doing an accelerated thing in the body. It's like things are happening quick. And don't get nervous. Just hold on to him. So, we've been sitting for a while, and I was going to do this right away, but why don't we just stand up and just say, I need Jesus. Yeah. Yeah, it's good. I need Jesus. Yeah, it's good. You can be seated. I just wanted you to stretch. Sometimes I have to think about you, like, what would I be like if I was sitting there that long? Stephen, I wouldn't be sitting there, would I? So talking about fruit, fruit. That's the thing, is we hang on to Jesus, there's going to be fruit in our life. There's going to be things. Fruit is there for us to partake of. It's there for us to enjoy. Aren't you happy about that? I mean, it's kind of getting into strawberry season. I like strawberries. Despite the videos you might have seen, I like strawberries, and they're tasty. And so I didn't find them yesterday, but I thought, I went to the farmer's market with like expectation. Like there could be strawberries out here today. But fruit is for us to partake of, to enjoy. Fruit is there for us to change, Just like during worship today, during the time of sitting in God's presence. You can't sit in God's presence without change happening. And you say, well, I think I look the same. Well, I'll tell you, you walk this stuff out, and there's change that happens. There's change when we partake of fruit. Fruit is there also to change the chaos that might be in the world around us. Do you know that? It's not just for us. I'm glad it's for us, and I'm glad it can come in my life and change me. How many have just, had times with God where, maybe his joy sat upon you in such a way that it changed you? I've had that happen. I've had, God come and just sit on me, and it's like I don't have any natural reason to be happy, but my goodness, everything is funny. Everywhere I look, I'm just like laughing. People might think I'm strange. People might think I'm intoxicated, and they're right. Intoxicated with him. So fruit can change the chaos in the world around us. And fruit also is there to show who we are, not to show us necessarily, but to show who we are. And it's also there to show whose we are. Do you hear me? Fruit does all these things. Fruit is amazing, when people see peace in your life, when people see joy in your life, when people see love in your life, it's an identifier. People know that you've got something they need. You've got Jesus. As we're together today, I just feel like it's appropriate. I feel like this is what God was leading me to, is to just spend some time and talk about this fruit of peace. I've been married to Dana for a few years. It's my way of saying It's like 30-something. No. Anyway, but I've heard her say this many times over the years. Peace is my favorite fruit, you know? And I love that. I love that peace is a fruit that God has given us to enjoy. I love that peace is something that I can partake of independent of my circumstances. Peace is something I can partake of when everything doesn't seem to line up right. You know? It's something that I get right from God, and I can get it even when I haven't been perfectly right. I can grab onto this stuff, and I can say, yeah. You know, it's like when the whole world around me, you know, is there's an old song that says the earth all around me is shifting sand, but on Christ the solid rock I stand. You know, don't ask me which song that is, but I know there's a line like that. And you know, the world can be doing all kinds of stuff, but I can pull into Him, and I can have something that's supernatural, that's peace. Something that I probably shouldn't have if you judge it by what's around me. But somehow, He favors us. Somehow, He has this there for us to just grab onto and be different. In John 14, I wanted to look at a few things that Jesus said. He actually said quite a bit about it, but just a couple. John 14:27, Jesus said this. He said, "Peace I leave with you." There's something about peace that Jesus felt it was so important that He told us that He was going to leave this with me. He said, "It's my peace that I'm given to you. Not as the world gives do I give to you. Let not your heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid." Sometimes my heart gets tempted to be troubled and tempted to be afraid because I'm observing things out there that are going on, and my mind, you know, can go, what in the world? I can't handle this right now. But Jesus says, you know what? Those things are going to happen, but pull into me because I've got something for you that might not make sense, but it's what you need right now. It's my peace. John 16:33. Jesus said this. He said, "These things I have spoken to you, that in me you might have peace. In the world you'll have tribulation, but be of good cheer. I've overcome the world." The Message Bible says it like this. It says, "I've told you all this so that trusting me, you'll be unshakable and assured, deeply at peace." I don't tell you, the world today, that word stands out to me. He says, "I've told you this so that trusting me, you'll be unshakable." How many think that would stand out in this world today? If you're unshakable. You know, I can't be unshakable on my own, but I can be unshakable as I plug into Him. As I put my eyes on Him and connect my heart with Him. You know, I'm so glad we take time at this church to wait on the presence of God. It's important to do that at church, but it's important to do that in life. It's important that you take whatever time it takes to get your heart settled and focused on Him. You know, I'm just like you. I live out there and I see things. I surf the web and I'm like, sometimes I'm appalled at what I see. And I have to go, no, I'm not looking there. Sometimes I just have to take dedicated time and say, hey, I'm going to take this time. I'm going to put my eyes right where they belong, right on Him. So He says, you'll be unshakable and assured, deeply at peace. In this godless world, you'll continue to experience difficulties, but take heart. I've conquered the world. You see, being a Christian doesn't mean you're never going to have any problems. I wish I could tell you that. I wish I could say, yeah, you get saved, whew, It's like Tinkerbell waved her wand over you. The fairy dust will never leave. And you know, we got something better than Tinkerbell. We got something better than fairy dust. We got the Holy Spirit living in us. But He's in us, and He doesn't exempt us from every problem that's out there in the world. What He does is He rises up big in the midst of them. Paul said this. He said, when I'm weak, then I'm strong. You know, people sometimes they'd say, hey, you know, pray that all my problems would go away. Well, you know, He'll work with you when you have problems, and He'll take you to the other side. But I'm telling you what, we don't live a life that's void of any kind of problem. Okay? We live a life we live in a fallen world. But we live with the risen Christ living inside us. Philippians 4:7, Paul said this. He said, and the peace of God, which passes all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds through Christ Jesus. Isn't that amazing? Even when thoughts, you know, are bombarding our minds, we can let His peace work in us. We can allow His peace to do what it does and rise up and guard our minds from all the oncoming missiles that are heading our way. So, you know, just talking again about fruit, and specifically today about peace. Peace is there for us to enjoy the benefit, but peace is there to impact the people around you. I want us to have the mindset, you know, it's just like we always say, to experience and express the love of God. You know, that holds true with all of the fruit, all of the gifts, that we'd first experience His peace, but then be able to express it to the world. Do you know that when you're walking in the peace of God, your presence affects the world around you? Yes. You can walk into a chaotic situation and actually bring supernatural peace on the scene. You can walk into a room, and I'm telling you, people can feel your presence, and really what they're feeling is the presence of God working through you. It's a powerful thing. I don't ever want to belittle what Jesus gave to us. I want to magnify it to the world around me. You knew we'd have to get here eventually. But in Galatians 5, there it is. Here we are. 5:22. It says, the fruit produced by the Holy Spirit within you is divine love in all its varied expressions. Joy that overflows. This is talking about fruit in you and I. Fruit that's there for us, fruit that's there for the world. Divine love, joy that overflows. I like that. Joy, not just joy, but joy that overflows. It's not like there's just a bubble in there, like, you know, like maybe you had gas, you know. Can tell I've been holding babies. I was going to say I bear the marks of a grandpa in my coat. There's spit up on it. Yeah, anyway. Not much. I always avoid the big explosions. But anyway, there's a hint. There's a hint of it. Joy that overflows. Peace that subdues. Patience that endures. Kindness, I'm reading from the Passion. Patience that endures. Kindness in action. Isn't that good? You know, a very fruit that's in us is kindness. Kindness. How should I act in a situation? Well, be kind. People won't always remember who's right in a situation, but they'll remember who's kind. You know? A life full of virtue, faith that prevails, gentleness of heart, and strength of spirit. And then it ends by saying, never set the law above these qualities, for they're meant to be limitless. Did you hear that? Never set the law above these qualities, for they're meant to be limitless. Wow. So there's no end to this fruit on the inside. You don't try to harness it and say, hey, don't worry about running out. Sometimes you know how you got something so good you don't want to just be too liberal with it because I tell you I might lose all. No, I tell you these things are limitless. They're in you. They're in me. There's enough peace inside you and me to endure the days ahead. More than enough. More than enough for you and me, more than enough for the people around us to be affected by us. So, we're talking about fruit. Talking about fruit. Is this okay we talk about fruit? You guys are out there? Mic's on today? Yeah, everything's good? Okay. Philippians 1:9 again. I went there a couple weeks ago, and I just kind of revisit it for a moment here. Paul said this. He said, I pray this above, that your love may abound still more and more, knowledge and all discernment. So it's a prayer. I'm just reading you a prayer that Paul prayed. That you may approve the things that are excellent and be sincere without offense till the day of Christ. Being filled with the fruits of righteousness, which are by Jesus Christ to the glory and praise of God. So here Paul's talking about fruit again. He calls it fruits of righteousness. Don't get hung up on a word righteousness. Some of you have a great understanding of that word righteousness. Let me just say it this way. Just being fruits of being a Christian. You know? Anybody that's a Christian is righteous. Do you hear me? And Paul said, be filled with the fruits of righteousness. Be filled with these fruits. You know? Let me just read a couple verses here on righteousness, though. Psalm 37:25. Hey, it says, I've been young and now I'm old. How's that happen? Anyway, yet everybody says I look like I'm 8, so hey, that's cool for me. Anyway, boy, I'm going to be thinking about Kelly's words all day. Actually, I'm going to be thinking about that Steve has stinky feet, and he's proud. You're just rolling with it. It's all right. It says, I've been young and now I'm old, yet I've not seen the righteous forsaken, nor his seed begging bread. I'll tell you, that's a fruit. See, that's a confidence. I can walk in life, you know, hanging on to God, that he's not turning his back on me. Has he ever gotten you through a rough situation? Yes. Does it ever look like nothing was going to work out and somehow he pulled you through? You know what? These fruits are limitless. They're not just a one-time thing. They're there as long as we're here on the earth. And you know, hey, heaven, that's a whole new story. Psalm 34:19, it says, many of the afflictions of the righteous are of the believers, of the Christians, but the Lord delivers him out of them all. There's good news for you. The Lord delivers her out of them all too. Okay? All right? The Bible isn't just calling males. It's calling males and men and women. He delivers Christians out of all the trouble. Okay? All the afflictions. I'm sorry to tell you, though, that he has that first part in there that says, many are the afflictions of the Christians or of the righteous. You know? Don't think you're a loser because you're facing a hard time, ever. If you're not facing a hard time, enjoy the moment. Okay? But when the moment changes, know that you're more than a conqueror. Know that you got him living in you. Know that you can draw on the fruit that is inside you, that never leaves you, that's peace. There's peace for that situation. Psalm 37:39, it says, the salvation of the righteous is from the Lord. He is their strength in times of trouble. Just camp in a minute on this righteous stuff. Just for a minute. Because I just wanted to read this verse. In Isaiah 32:17, we're talking about peace today. It says, the work of righteousness will be peace. And the effect of righteousness, quietness and assurance forever. You see, you're in Christ. If you've simply called on him and said, hey, I want you. I want what you got. I heard Stephen talk about, you know, God, are you real? Show me. I've had those moments where, God, are you real? And he shows himself to me. You know, that's how we used to pray for our kids. You know, we had kids that grew up in Christian. We had PK kids, you know. Oh, my. God, help them. That's what I always thought. I thought, oh, help the PK kids, you know. Judged by everybody, you know. Not everybody knows what PK kids are? You didn't know? You didn't know. Where were you, Stephen? I tell you. PK just means a preacher's kid, pastor's kid. And what Dane and I used to pray for our kids when they were young is, Lord, let them have that aha moment. Don't let them, your kids can't just ride on that you know God well. They need to know Him for themselves. So I remember specifically, I was in the house on Quail Avenue in Minneapolis, where I remember just having one of those moments where we said, this is how we're going to pray. We're praying that our kids, that each one of them has the kind of experience, not that they have to go through the junk we went through, but they'd have this experience where they know God is real. And for our kids, a lot of it happened when we'd send them off to camp. So I wasn't even there. Yeah, they'd go to Bible camp and they'd come back like, wow, we had experience with God. God's real. We shipped them off when they were young. But anyway, yeah, it's cool. Knowing God, knowing Him. The work of righteousness will be peace. The effect of righteousness, quietness and assurance forever. I tell you, whatever's going on in the world, I come back to this. I'm right with God. I'm right with Him. I've asked Him in my life. He's changed me from the inside out. And I can sit on that. I can stand on that is maybe a better way to say it. I know I have connection with Him. I can pray and I know He hears me when I pray. I can pray, and even though I might not see the answer the moment I pray, I can kick back and say, I'm His kid. He hears me when I pray. I don't have to be troubled by whether I see what happened or not. I've got peace. I'm tranquil. Maybe I'm too tranquil sometimes. Some people have to take tranquilizers. I'm telling you, you got the tranquil one in you. You got His peace. All right, we're going to look at Mark 4. I'm going to read a Jesus story. I always like to read a good Jesus story whenever I can. See, He lived this stuff. Aren't you glad we got somebody who, He walked the same earth we walked and showed us what it's like to be a Christian. Some people would balk at that and say, but he is the Son of God. But He came to this earth. He laid down all that God, stuff and said, I'm walking this earth as a man. And I'm showing you what it's like to walk the earth as a man that's got life in him. A man that's connected to God. Someone, and He's my example. He says, whatever I see the Father do, that's what I'm going to do. That's what you need to do. Whatever you see the Father showing you to do, just do it. What if it looks dumb? Who cares? What's it going to hurt if I just do what I see my Father do? Sometimes it's just the littlest things that He shows you to do. And it just brings all kinds of breakthrough to you and to people around you. Just doing the things that He shows you to do. Don't get all hung up in the things He hasn't shown you yet. Just do the things He's shown you now. Okay? Some people live in this realm where they never are going to arrive because they're hung up on so many things that don't even matter at the moment. What's He telling you to do right now? Mark 35, it says this. On the same day when evening had come, He said to them being the disciples, He says, let us cross over to the other side. And they had those are good words. Let us cross. There's I don't know if I do this every time now, but especially back, Dana used to have this huge fear of flying. Some people might know that. Her mom and dad know that probably, and it was like a handicap of going on a trip somewhere. Because I had to pull her out of the bathroom one time and get her on a plane. I almost thought I was going to have to throw her over my shoulder and say, "Come on, we're going." But I can tell that, right? Yeah. It's true. It was in Chicago. Anyway, but we did it. And it was just like a constant thing. We'd say, listen, we are going to pass over to the other side. We'd say it just like Jesus. We're going to pass over to the other side. And we did. We did. Sometimes there were wild rides when we were passing over, remember one small, sometimes, I don't know, nowadays I guess you kind of know what kind of plane you're getting on, but maybe I was just ignorant, but it was always like, oh, we're going to ride a 727 today or something, I remember one particular, the one I was referring to, we'd just flown to Chicago, and it was on a 727. And they're a smaller plane. They're not like a DC-9 or 10 or anything like that. And we got to Chicago, and Dana was pretty nerved up. She was like, oh, man, that was such a small plane. We felt every bump, and what is it, a half-hour ride or something? But it seemed like a long ride. And she says, Paul, just tell me we're not going to get on another small plane. I said, oh, Dana, they don't come too much smaller than that. And then we looked out the window, and it was a prop job. Yeah, you actually couldn't even walk down a tunnel. You had to walk outside to get up on stairs to climb up it. And it was like, oh, no. And the ride was like, shoo, shoo. More people made use of these accessories in the seats in front of them than I'd ever seen. But in any case, and the funny thing is we had two kids at the time. One was Casey, who was a baby and basically, slept, 6 months old. And then Kara, and seriously, there was some major turbulence. We were just going up and down. And Kara was like, whee! She was standing up going, yeah! She thought it was fun. She didn't know enough to be scared. But anyway. And she's like that still. She likes a good roller coaster. Yeah! Anyway. So Jesus said, let us cross over to the other side. Now when they had left the multitude, they took him along in the boat as he was, and other little boats were with him. And a great windstorm arose, and the waves beat into the boat so that it was already filling. So I just want to point this out, that even when you're following Jesus, even when even when Jesus is right there with you, you can experience storms. You hear me? Some people get all freaked out and they think, oh, and maybe, maybe you're off track, then you need to get on track. And that's simple too. You just make a change. But I tell you what, even when you're following God, even when you're smack in the middle of the will of God, you'll encounter storms, okay? Now in verse 38, I love this. He was in the stern asleep on a pillow. Go Jesus, I love that. And they awoke him and said, Teacher, don't you care that we're perishing? Have you ever had that thought? Have you ever been in a storm and thought, where are you, Jesus? Are you sleeping on a pillow? Where are you? Don't you care that I'm perishing? Well, Jesus cares. He's all for you. But he had already spoken the word. He had already said, let's pass over to the other side. We could go back to the last thing Jesus said, and it would have been enough to take us where we need to go. What's the last thing he told you in life? It's easy to forget the last thing he told you in life when a storm arises. But I'm telling you, go back to that, because there's security in it. So, these again are seasoned. You forget where these guys came from. Jesus found a bunch of them as they were out there fishing. These were fishermen. These were seasoned men of the water. This was not just any kind of storm. This was a big storm. In fact, the Bible calls it a great storm. This was enough that made a seasoned fisherman shake in his boots and say, hey, where are you, God? Where are you, Jesus? I remember when it was back in the early 80s, probably about 1982, I was traveling with a ministry. It was called Light Ministries. And we seems like we were either in Haiti or else we were out in California most of the time. And we were out in Northern California going to a bunch of different churches. I remember we were in Mark and Brenda Thomas's church out there, and we were just hanging, after service one day, and there was this lady. She was an older woman, being that I was 20, she could have been 40, but no, she was actually older, and she was what they called an intercessor, and that just is a term for a prayer. But there was a huge kind of move in the body of Christ back at that time about prayer. And yeah, I guess you had to be there. Dana remembers it. But anyway, I remember we were talking to this lady. I think her name was Fran. And just kind of picking her brain. Like, hey, what do you do when you pray about the weather? And I just remember, whatever reason, I just remember her saying, well, I kind of know what's normal. And she said, when I pray about the weather is when it's not being normal. I thought, that's good. God didn't put you here to, be a meteorologist and control everything, that's not your calling. But she says when things are abnormal. I remember one time Dana, I was working a job when we first started this church. I was working in St. Paul, and I remember calling her, and I'd heard on the news that there was a tornado heading right for this part of Minneapolis that we knew a lot of people in. Like there was it was like west of the city a bit, and it was heading right there. And so she was on the phone praying with her friend Mary, and I actually heard the actual, it was a tornado. It actually changed course when they started praying, and it was like, whoa. You know, the weather guys are going, oh, I don't get it, but it's going a different way now. They took authority. They prayed. All right. So anyway, he arose. Jesus arose. He rebuked the wind and said to the sea, peace, be still. That's what he said, peace, be still. I love that Jesus didn't get all caught up in the storm. He didn't go trying to curse every wind and every wave and everything out of the ordinary. He just looked at it and he said, peace, be still. You know, he released a power. He released a supernatural power. He released something that he actually said you and I would have in this world, and that's peace. Now, you know, again, I'm not telling you to go get on boats and calm storms like that. There's people that have done it. John Alexander Dowie had, back in his day, 1900s, he had to cross the ocean several times, and read his story. He talked about several times when storms came up and he just stood there and rebuked them, and they left. Cool, you know. That's there. But I'm telling you, there's other kinds of storms. And your peace can still a storm. Your peace is for you. Your peace is for the people around you. Don't belittle what God has put in you and given to you. I'll read on. It says, he rebuked the wind and the sea, said, peace, be still, and the wind ceased. And then, just like it said there was a great storm in verse 37, in verse 39 says there was a great calm. I love that. Isn't that cool that in the midst of a great storm, he spoke peace? What kind of words are we using? He spoke peace. He didn't have to talk about how bad the storm was. He spoke about the goodness of God. He spoke peace. And it brought a great calm. But he said to them, why are you so fearful? How is it you have no faith? For they feared exceedingly and said to one another, who can this be that even the wind and the sea obey him? Wow. Isn't that an amazing story? Don't see yourself as just one of the disciples. See yourself navigating life the way Jesus navigated the earth. That's where he's called us to live. In this world around us, wow, he hasn't deserted us. He's there with us. Storms that you're facing today, they need the peace of God spoken to them. You know, sometimes maybe you need to stand on your dining room table and say, peace to this home, you know. I don't know that I've ever done that, but if I needed to, I would, you know. God doesn't need me to do that, but sometimes I need me to do things like that. Sometimes I need to just be demonstrative. It's like Stephen was saying, sometimes I need to raise my hand up and say, yes. Hey, it doesn't make you more powerful, but maybe it connects you. It connects you more. So anyway, I just wrote that down. He said, whatever you're going through right now might not look like you thought it was going to, but always go back to the last thing he told you and put your attention on that. Put your attention on him. I'll just end with this. Isaiah 26:3 says he'll keep us in perfect peace whose mind is stayed on you, on God, on Jesus, because we trust him. Because we trust him. So that's our thing in life, you know, keeping our heads on straight, keeping our minds set on him, keeping us in perfect peace. Hey, thanks for tuning in today. I hope this message was a blessing to you.
Yeah, hey, we just wanted to give you the opportunity as well to partner up and plug in to the church by giving. So if you would like to be a part of that and help make this all possible, you can do so by going to wearelovechurch.com/give. You can also plug in, stay in the loop with what's going on at the church via our Instagram and Facebook platforms. So, love y'all.
God bless you.